guys, what is going on? Blossoms back. Welcome back to another episode of Overrated or Overpowered. I know usually I make these videos closer to the release of a new update, but of course since I was away and I had some other projects I needed to finish, it took a little bit longer this time round. Now, Asia Pacific Revival. Took me a second to remember the name. I was like, Asia Grand Prix. No, it's not. Asia Pacific Revival, which I'm going to just address as APR Part 1. Is a pretty small update. Usually when it comes to this series on a brand new update, I like to do at least 3 to 4 different parts. But I honestly think for this update, 1 part is enough. If you guys remember this series, it's always 9 cars per series, where we take a closer look at a select amount of cars, take off our rose-tinted glasses, and see how good they actually are. Well, I'm highlighting 9 cars today. If there are any cars that I missed out that you guys want me to maybe take a closer look at, feel free to comment down in the comments below. Maybe I'll make a part 2 if there's enough stuff there. But so far my plans are just making it a 1-part for part 1. You know, part 2 is probably around the corner. I mean, there should be a part 2 if they call part 1, and hopefully there'll be more cars to analyze when that comes around as well. So as always, guys, I'm going to turn off my camera and we're going to get into today's video. Okay, so we're going to begin on a high on a car that we're pretty familiar with already. About a week ago, I made the best uncommons in the game for every single track set, and the Hyundai Ioniq 9 was one of those dark horses that really came out and surprised everyone, or maybe at least it surprised me. So we're going to start off with a high. The Hyundai Ioniq 9 long-range rear-wheel drive. This is one hell of an uncommon, honestly. Maxed out at 323. You can see the stats are 7.182. It's rear-wheel drive with standard tires. The MR in this car isn't even that high, but it is the best uncommon for the City Street Small as well as the City Street Medium, as we've already gone over in that, best uncommon for every single track set. On top of being the best uncommon that you can use for City Street Small and Medium in the game right now, it's also the best option for karting circuit, twisty circuit rolling, twisty road, forest road, Monaco hairpin, Monaco G-force tests, and even more track sets. This is a very impressive car, beating out some really powerful rivals in the Hyundai Kona Electric, the Honda CRX, and even the Suzuki Kara, and even the Mazda RX-7 in some cases. So I gotta say, the Hyundai Ioniq 9 is starting us off on the right foot over here. It's a very strong car, and it definitely deserves that Blossom Choice title. It is a fantastic uncommon to collect and to get. I don't have one yet, and I'm genuinely missing out. Having a Hyundai Ioniq 9 long range will help you so much. It's also really good for, I believe it's the Rallycross Medium dirt, and maybe even Rallycross Medium Wet. I think one of the Rallycrosses where it ends up being the best uncommon that you can use as well. So the Hyundai Ioniq 9 long range is a fantastic car, and we're starting off with an absolute high for APR Part 1. Now, moving on to another car that I wanted to highlight was the Honda Civic EHEV. Now, why am I highlighting this? Is because it's one of the first ever APR cars that I ever got straight into the update, right? And also, it is one of the best standard tire rares that you can get from the update. It's RQ39. 84 handling looks promising. How good is this car actually? So we're going to start off looking at the front wheel drive standard medium ground clearance meta, and unfortunately we're not off to a good start with the Honda Civic EHEV. Now, as always guys, if I missed out a certain niche to test any of the cars in, feel free to let me know down in the comments below, but I tried to cover as many as many avenues as I could remember. So we're starting off with the front wheel drive standard tire niche for the Honda Civic EHEV, and as you can see, it isn't the best in anything. Car park all the way to fast circuit, it isn't the best. You'd rather use a Buick Velite or even a Mazda 3 Sport. Now that's not a good start, because if it's not even going to be standing out in the front wheel drive standard meta, then it's not going to be that good in the Japanese meta, the Japanese general meta, or even the general meta overall. Because if I'm comparing the Honda Civic to just Japanese cars, for example, it's still going to fall behind the Honda Accord and the Mazda 3 Sport, which are already in this comparison. If I did it in the general sense, it's going to fall behind even more to some of the rear-wheel drive options out there as well. What I can do is, decrease the sights even more, make it an even more niche competition pool. And when we compare the Honda against only rare Hondas, okay, so the Honda Civic, we're only comparing them against other rare Hondas, then you can see it start to shine a little bit more. It's losing in the City Street Small to the Accord Hybrid, as you can see here, but then it becomes the best for City Streets Medium, karting circuit, the twisty circuits, and twisty road. So if you find yourself in an event where you need to use a rare standard tire Honda, then then the Civic would be useful. But if Honda wasn't, you know, a 5-time requirement, then they're going to be better options for you to use, most likely. Now, let's go even more niche, okay? Let's go to APR P1 standard rares. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised, but it's actually trading blows with the Suzuki Swift. I expected better from the Suzuki Swift because it's 4-wheel drive and center tires, but it doesn't beat the Civic on small and medium city street. It only beats the Civic on car park G-force and the more twisty scenarios, and surprisingly twisty circuit as well, but the Civic is able to trade blows. So when it comes to standard tire rare APR, you know, Asia Pacific Revival Part 1, you know, rare standard tire cars, then the Civic is a decent option to use. That and the Suzuki Swift are cars that you can definitely consider. And then we've got that Hyundai Kona Electric, which is also decent on the fast circuit if you want to save a little bit of RQ. Overall, I think that the Honda Civic EHEV is just slightly above average. You got to know where to use it, right? It wins in track sets within its own rarity if it's with its own brand, or within its own rarity within its own update of APR Part 1. Now, there is a chance that in APR Part 2, it might bring another RQ39 standard tire car that will be better than the Honda Civic. So as far as I can say, it is one of the better cars to use for Part 1 only. And then we'll see if it can, you know, withstand the test of time. Now moving on is the Honda CR-V EHEV 2.0. Why I've selected this car is because it is one of the better handling all-surface tire super rares that you can get. If I remember correctly, it is the best handling all-surface tire super that you can get from this update. And I'm hoping that, you know, now all off-road tire cars have been nerfed, so a lot of off-road tire cars has gone up in rarity. I want to see a top drives world where all-surface tire cars and off-road tire cars are a little bit more balanced. So I want to see if the Honda CR-V can actually hold its own. Well, we're going to start off with Japanese all-surface super rares that are RQ47 or less, including the Subaru XV, which is the only RQ48 that is here. Well, starting us off with the dirt scenario, the Honda CR-V actually is pretty decent. It's beating a lot of the RQ47s. Things like the Subaru Tribeca B9 that used to be an Ultra that has gone down is losing to the Honda CR-V as well. So that's a good start for the Honda CR-V. It's also beating things like the Subaru XV, which is 1 RQ higher. So that's a pretty good start. Also, another thing that you need to realize is that this Honda CR-V is also beating the Honda CR-V 2.0 MMD hybrid all-wheel drive. I hate Japanese names for cars like this. Japanese names, German. It's so boring. How am I supposed to remember 2.0 IMMD hybrid all? There's no soul there, okay? But anyway, they're the same RQ. They're both in the same update, but you can see that the CR-V is the better car. So that's something to take note because it handles better. As simple as that, right? I'm also going to compare it in the gravel scenario. As you can see, it is one of the better cars to use, which is pretty cool. So, you know, when it comes to Japanese all-surface tire super rares within its RQ, that CR-V is a pretty competent car. Now we're bringing it over to the snow. Again, that Honda, pretty good. It's winning a lot of the races. Forest Road Snow, Frozen Lake Snow, Twisty Circuit Snow, Hairpin Road Snow, trade some blows with the XV, which is 1 RQ higher, which is fine, and also the XV Crosstrek, which is another Subaru that's RQ47. That being said though, although it's a standout within its own RQ for Japanese all-surface tire cars, if I'm putting it up against a general sense, against all countries within its RQ, take note that the Hyundai Santa Fe is the better car to use because it has 1 more handling. It's a better car for twisty road, twisty circuit, rallycross, and this translates to all the other track sets as well, all the other surfaces, the snow, the sand, the ice, yada 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 yada. And that is kind of interesting, but also something that you need to take note about is that the Hyundai Santa Fe and the Honda CR-V comes from the same update. It's Asia Pacific Revival. It's APR. So if you find yourself in an APR event where you need to use a super all-surface tire car, don't go for the CR-V, go for the Hyundai Santa Fe. That's a better car that you can use. But if it's limited to Japanese cars only and you have to use a 47, then the Honda CR-V is going to be decent. So you got to know where to use it again. When it comes to just the general update of APR, it's not the best. But if you're just limiting it to Japanese within its RQ, then it's a pretty decent car to use. So you just got to know where to use it. Honestly, at the end of the day, I think it's just slightly under average, mainly because it hasn't, all surface tires in general hasn't really proven itself to be a competent tire. I would still rather choose an off-road tire car if I could. An off-road tire car if I could. That being said, if I needed to use an all-surface tire car that was RQ47, which is very niche, and it also needs to be Japanese, then I'll go for the Honda CR-V. I don't think it's a bad car, but it doesn't stand out in my opinion. Now, Moving on, the Mitsuoka Buddy. Now, the reason why I'm choosing the Mitsuoka Buddy is because it's cool. I kind of like it. I like the name, and also I maxed it out just because I could. Full send, why not? So, maxed out the Mitsuoka Buddy. You know, 15 Ultra spent. Was it worth it? Well, let's talk about that. We're starting off with off-road / all-surface. I'm putting them together now, off-road and all-surface. Epics between 69 and 67 RQ. And as you can see, in the snow, the Mitsuoka Buddy ain't too bad. Beating things like the RQ69 Porsche 924, beating things like the Bentayga, beating things like even the Chevrolet Silverado and the Barf X19 Prototipo in some tracks, okay? Hairpin road, twisty road, G-force. The Buddy is a little bit better. But you want to use the Silverado for twisty circuit, you want to use the Barf for snow, yada, yada, yada. That being said, the moment I put in the times for the Ford Ranger Raptor, which to be fair is 2 RQ higher, the Ranger Raptor is dominant. It will beat everything here on just about almost every track set. That being said, you know, within its own RQ neighborhood of 67 and below, and is even capable of beating some rear-wheel drive 69 RQ, four-wheel drive cars, the Buddy is relatively competent in the snow. Unfortunately, the good news ends there. This is the only time you will actually see the Mitsuoka Buddy being competent as an RQ67 in the snow against off-road and all-surface tire cars around its RQ, because when you open up the floodgates, you go dirt wet, you go dirt, you go sand, you go gravel. The Buddy doesn't win anything. It doesn't win anything at all. You know, again, on dirt, on snow. And here's another thing, right? So I wanted to compare it in 2 different niches, within its update and within its country. It can't even beat the RQ65 Nissan Silvia on the dirt. It will beat the Silvia in the snow. But, you know, if you want to use a Japanese car for the snow, why use the Mitsuoka Buddy? Although it beats a Silvia, if you own the Nissan Bluebird, use that instead. And then when it comes to the update that the Mitsuoka Buddy comes from, which is APR, you know, again, you can use the Santa Fe. The Santa Fe is a better option to use in the snow. It's also a better option to use in the dirt compared to the Buddy. And if you want to use a Japanese off-roader, if it's a dirt scenario, you're better off using the Nissan Silvia. So, you know, it's tough, you know, like the Silvia is better on rallycross, Monaco, slalom, hairpin road, twisty road, all that kind of stuff. So the Buddy does not find itself in a good position, only in the snow, within, you know, RQ67 or less. Yeah, it's not the greatest thing in the world. It's a little bit overrated, isn't it? I mean, I max it out, you know, and I don't think I'll be using it ever, unless they made a tri-series where you needed to use a Japanese, you know, off-roader, and the Mitsuoka is the only one. I can't see that happening, but yeah, there you go, Buddy. I'm sorry, man, not too good. All right, next one is the Mitsuoka 01 Classic Type F. Now, this car has surprised me. Why? It's because as I'm recording today's video, it's like rare 2 times, super rare 3 times in clubs or whatever, and the RQ is pretty stringent. And I was going up against a couple opponents that were using the Mitsuoka, and I gotta say, this 01 is a pretty damn good bargain, especially when the RQ gets tight. You just gotta know where to use this car. It ain't too bad, honestly. So here you go, against low RQ rare twisty cars. The Mitsuoka 01 stands out on the G-force, the indoor karting, the slalom. Now, that is no small feat. Looking at the competition that it's beating MX-5s, it's beating the BMW Z4, the Chevy Code, the Yunus Roadster, and the Donkavort S7 on the slalom, which is very impressive. Now, in yellow, as you can see, I will note that an 879 upgraded Donk S7 will beat the Mitsuoka 01. But then, if a 323 Mitsuoka can beat a 323 Donk S7, I can assume that an 879 Mitsuoka 01 will be able to beat an 879 Donk S7. So right now in the game, in terms of what is documented, an 879 Donkavort S7 is the best slalom rare for, like, I think RQ33 and below. But if you get an 879 on that Mitsuoka, things might change. Just might. But yeah, I gotta say that for an RQ31, that is a decent bargain, I would say. Now moving on to Japanese low RQ twisty. You know, within its RQ, man, it's still good on G-force, indoor karting, and slalom. The fact that it's able to beat the MX-5s is impressive. It's a feat in itself, and that's actually very impressive coming from the Mitsuoka 01. Even so impressive in a sense that I actually wanted to just compare it to every single performance tire APR Part 1 rare twisty. yeah, it doesn't win anything. And I also wanted to show you that all these Mitsuoka Orochis are basically the same. But hey, it's a bargain. The thing about the 01 Classic Type F is it is a bargain. I think it is slightly above average. You know, it's not a car that's going to win you a lot, but when the RQ is tight, this is a car that you can depend on. This is a car that you can rely on. Or if you want to save RQ, you can save some points by using the Mitsuoka 01. So I do think that this brings value to the table. I would even argue that it brings more value to the table than the RQ35 because you save 4 more RQ. So yeah, I think it's a pretty damn good car. All right, moving on. Suzuki EVX concept. I had high hopes for this because it has 83 handling when you max it out, 4-wheel drive, standard tires. So, you know, I thought it was going to be like a Volvo EX30 or whatever, where it becomes like a hairpin sleeper or something like that. Well, unfortunately, the EVX, I mean, okay, so against APR Part 1 standard tire cars, it's the second best. But do take note that on the fast circuit, it's not even the second best. It actually loses to the super rare Mitsuoka Galew, whatever it is, the Galew 3. But yeah, anyway, it's mostly second best across the board, which is fair. It's RQ62, like it's the second best one. I mean, APR didn't bring a lot of variety, and the standard tire car variation kind of proves that. But this doesn't say much. So let's put it up against Japanese 4-wheel drive standard tire cars. Honestly, it's kind of disappointing. It loses to the RQ59 BRZ in many areas, and the moment I bring in the times for things like the Levorg, the Kizashi, and the CX90s, the EVX just really falls down the pecking order, right? It loses to the 323, which is 1 RQ cheaper on G-Force and Slalom. It loses to the CX60 on the car park, for crying out loud. Loses to the BRZ. The EVX doesn't really win anywhere, which is a little bit disappointing. It shines a little bit more in like a Suzuki only event. So if you get Suzuki only standard tires, or it's like a rain Suzuki event, you gotta know where to put it because it can trade blows with the Suzuki Kizashi. You just gotta know where to put it. City street small, hairpin road, twisty circuit, fast circuit. That's where I'll beat the Kizashi. The Kizashi will beat it in other places. I think about more hybrid track sets. More hybrid track sets that kind of value, you know, drag a little bit more, more straights. The EVX concept will be a better car over the Kizashi. But you can only see this experiment or this battle in a Suzuki only event. If it was a Japanese event, you know, 4-wheel drive standard, again, the Suzuki EVX, I mean, decent on city street small if you take away the CX90s. And that's really all it brings to the table, because when you compare it up against all the twisty stuff that isn't city streets wet, the EVX isn't that great. But if you put it up against like wet city streets small, then I guess it hits slightly above its weight. And then when it comes to ultra concept standard, because the EVX is also a concept, decent on a car park, can use it on a twisty road, but you would rather just use a Lincoln MKS concept, which is 1 RQ higher, but it wins a lot more races. One thing to take note as well is that Chrysler Nassau that used to be an Epic that's gone on to an ultra rare seems to be a pretty decent concept for the city street small and the hairpin road as well. So that's one thing to take into account. And fast circuit, beating things like the Cadillac Interspace. So there is some use for that Chrysler Nassau now if you find yourself in an ultra rare concept standard tire event. Overall, I think the car is average. You know, you can use it in a Suzuki event and it'll be useful in anything APR related. Because there aren't a lot of, you know, standard tire cars to go around in that update. But overall, average at best. In hindsight, I'm thinking that I'm being a little bit too lenient. I don't even think that this car should be, maybe slightly under average, maybe, now I'm thinking about it. Anyway, moving on. Okay, this one was really hyped. I was really hyped to see this as well. It's 97 handling and it's medium ground clearance. And like on paper, I was like, damn, this thing is gonna be good. You know, especially if it had like, you know, MRA in like the high 80s. I think this car would be fantastic. Unfortunately, the MRA is like 75. That being said, though, still medium. It's still 97 handling. So how good is it actually? The Honda Civic Type R FL5. Well, when it comes to city streets, the Honda Civic Type R ain't that great. It actually loses to the ultra rare Renault Clio RS. It also loses to the Vauxhall Maloo in city streets small. As you can see, compared with, you know, front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, medium ground clearance cars within its RQ from 64 to 67, the Honda Civic Type R only wins twisty circuit. Twisty circuit standing and rolling, and that's about it. Everything else goes to all the other cars. Actually, the most important, the most impressive car here is the freaking ultra rare, which really makes you wonder why in the hell did cars like the Jaguar and the Vauxhall and even the Pontiac, why did they go up from ultra rare to epic? Because that never made any sense, and the Clio slapping them around basically just solidifies my point. Okay, so the Honda Civic Type R isn't that great against medium ground clearance front-wheel drive, road drive cars. City streets, I mean, not city streets, but twisty circuit is okay. But let's put it in a different light. Japanese medium ground clearance cars, this is where the Honda Civic shines a little bit more. It trades blows. In fact, it's better than the RQ68 Infiniti Q50, which is 3 RQ higher. And I would say that it is one of the best bargain epic Japanese medium ground clearance cars that you can use. It is a good enough car that it will beat medium ground clearance Japanese ultra rears, but it will also beat a lot of medium ground clearance Japanese epics, because a lot of these Japanese epics still are slightly overhyped in terms of RQ. You know, all these Subarus with their four-wheel drive drivetrains, they've got nothing compared to the Honda Civic Type R. So the Honda Civic is still good, you just got to use it in like Japanese medium ground clearance. Also, on top of that, it's also good when it comes to APR, medium ground clearance. Not a lot of it's the second best medium ground clearance APR car, only behind the off-road tire Suzuki Legendary. So, gotta know where to use it. I think it's average. You know, at the end of the day, it is a very RQ65E car, and you know, not a lot of people would want to max an RQ65E car, but I think it's a very cool car. I think it handles very well. I think it performs well into a twisty circuit, and it will perform well in any medium ground clearance Japanese event, especially as an RQ saver. So yeah, I would say that it's average. You're just gonna know where to use it. All right, 2 more cars that I want to focus on. Hyundai Ioniq 5 84K. Now, I talked about this car briefly in like a pack review maybe a week ago or less than a week ago for the most recent Tri-Series, and I openly admitted that I didn't know much about this car, and the main reason for that is because I've not made the video until now. So now we're going to analyze the Hyundai Ioniq 5 84K. How good is it actually? Very good actually. It can trade blows with the Hyundai Ioniq 6, which is the black Hyundai. I will never remember these names. They are so boring. I just see a bunch of numbers. 5, 8, 4, 6, 7, 7, 5, 7. I don't care. But what I will say is there's a silver Hyundai and there's a black Hyundai. Electric cars have no soul, and I have no patience to learn about them, okay? So anyway, gray. Gray Hyundai, pretty good. It's able to go toe-to-toe with black Hyundai. Both Hyundais, good car. Gray Hyundai, black Hyundai. Collect both. RQ79, useful for you. Woohoo! As you can see over here. But hey, let's move out from South Korea for a little bit. Let's put it up against the best standard tire epics that Top Drives has to offer. And I gotta say, once again, gray Hyundai, black Hyundai, doing very good, you know? They're beating out the cars of soul, like the Cadillac CT6 or even the Ford Fusion Sport. The I-Pace has no soul, to be fair. But yeah, the best cars here are all the ones without any soul, basically. The gray Hyundai, the black Hyundai, and the Jaguar I-Pace are your best performers here. That GMC Cyclone getting like a 3 RQ buff, but it doesn't win anything, which is a little bit of a shame. And then moving on to, I guess, the other half, you got your more hybrid hybrid wet circuits, like your Laguna Seca, City Sprint, Monaco G-Force, Monaco Hairpin. Again, the winners go to the gray Hyundai, the black Hyundai, and of course the Jaguar I-Pace being very dominant still as well. But overall, that gray Hyundai, yeah, it's pretty good, man. You know, just know where to use it. Karting circuit is pretty strong. Twisty circuit, twisty road, among some of the best in the game, man. And it trades blows with the black Hyundai, and everyone already knew this, but the black Hyundai was good, so gray Hyundai also good. So there you go, gray Hyundai. I'm gonna give it a very high score. Almost Blossom choice, not quite, but almost there. It manages to stand among the best epic standards in the game, and that is very impressive. Good job, gray Hyundai. Okay, last one. We've got blue Hyundai, or blue-orange Hyundai, whatever you want to call it. The Ioniq 5 NTA Spec, which is the best packable car that you can get from this update. Well, let's see how it performs. Against slick tire cars within its RQ, it stands out on hairpin, karting, and twisty road. Mainly hairpin and karting. As you can see, it's able to beat things like the Mazda Furai. It even beats the prize car Alfa Romeo 177, which is, you know, essentially an F1 car. It also beats the Corvette C8R, the Porsche RSR 19, the Porsche 956C, which is all very impressive. Obviously, there are no times to 935. The moment we're bringing the Porsche 935, which to be fair is like 4 RQ higher, it's dominant. But I gotta say though, for an RQ93, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 holds its own against other stick tire cars within its RQ, so it's a good legendary to have. But let's see how it performs against performance tire cars. So I'm adding in some performance tire cars in here, like the McLaren 720S, Pagani Huayra Tricolor, those Radicals, the Donkavort D8 GTO, and it loses its place on the twisty road because the Radical is a better option to use, but it still remains, you know, one of the best cars for the hairpin road in the karting circuit, which is very impressive. So overall, I would say that this is definitely a good car to get. If you get it, be very happy. If you see a hairpin road, if you encounter a hairpin road at karting circuit, this is going to be a great car to use, okay? But anyway, guys, that is going to be it for today. Let me know down in the comments below, do you want to see a part 2? Is it even worth doing a part 2? Are there even 9 cars to cover still? You know? But anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for today. That has been another episode of Overrated or Overpowered, the APR Part 1 edition. I hope you guys have a great day, and stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly, got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly, got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville.